Welcome to Theory Thursday. Yay for research. So, when I was in my master's program for mindful leadership, conflict resolution, and international peace building, I did some research and some writing on the relationship between dignity and peace. And I am sharing this research today because we are close to the holiday season, and the stress that we feel in considering relationship dynamics, our boundaries, triggers, and emotions are often related to dignity. And I think because of this, I want to focus today on sharing a research paper that I wrote on dignity and peace, because I think I'm certain you'll find, that there is a correlation that's very powerful and there are actionable steps that you can take to focus on promoting dignity and recognizing its relationship with peace, both for yourself and for the people around you. Donna Hicks' 2018 essay, Dignity Dialogues, revealed the connection between dignity and our survival instinct by saying, quote, "We now know that we are equally motivated to be connected to others, as this deep instinct also has survival value. Being together meant humans were much more likely to survive than being on one's own," end quote. It follows that a loss of dignity through broken connections with others can be a catalyst to response on par with a general threat to survival. Losses of dignity when you are unable to escape the source or sources of offense can be especially traumatic. Instinctively, as Hicks shares, we struggle on a deep level if we feel unaccepted or unvalued by a group central to our survival. Family life matters a lot. My lesson from the first week of this final project was that I can be a real jerk at home. Following the week of the semester where we looked deeply at our shadow sides, I had come to terms with the reality of what I believe about myself and my contribution to my family. This was painful and ugly work for me. In Mark Matusek's 2017 book, Writing to Awaken, he offers that, quote, "The shadow self, the alter ego, has a voice you must listen to. It's not necessary to do what it says, but its messages are filled with growth potential," end quote. This was consistent with the way the shadow side was presented in our academic studies during this semester. Matusek categorized the balance in our shadow side in a way that deeply resonated with me, saying, quote, "The shadow self walks the threshold between fear and desire, that illuminating edge where we transcend the known and step beyond our shadow, beyond our story, into something new," end quote. Asking myself questions about what half-truths or lies I am telling on a regular basis, how they may serve or hinder me, and who I would be without them, had a profound impact on my project. I began to face that I have an inflated sense of self and believe that because I am the primary breadwinner and I work many hours each week, everyone else who lives here is somewhat subject to my poor attitude, critical nature, and general preference for quiet. This was a hard reality to face. My father could be impatient at times with my family, and this was hurtful. I was a peacemaker in the house and learned that if I did and didn't do what he did and didn't like, I would be accepted, dignified. So facing the fact that I am in many ways doing the same thing to my own family was a troubling realization. Additionally, I realized that despite many years of saying repeatedly that I was proud that Sean and I bucked traditional gender roles, while I worked outside of the house and he cared for the household and kids, despite being a professional attorney, I carried a deep sense of shame that I wasn't the attentive mom I was expected to be because I was working. This isn't unique to me, a working mom, but I really didn't think I carried that. I had to face that the way I responded to that guilt or damage to my dignity was to talk about home life in a way that laid claim to any number of things I wasn't really doing. For example, in ending conversations with my mom, I might say, "All right, I have to go wrangle the kids to bed," or "All right, time to figure out dinner," when in reality, Sean had all the feeding and wrangling well in hand. Furthermore, he doesn't have to wrangle at all. He has such beautiful relationships with our children, they giggle their way to bed with lightness and joy in their hearts. Listening to me speak this way left Sean's dignity damaged, encouraging him to ask himself, is she ashamed that I'm doing housework and child rearing? Anger would also arise in him. I was taking credit for his hard work, and that wasn't fair either. For years, I would just talk this away by saying, I just say that to my mom. She doesn't understand, and that's just easier. I began to see how unfair and offensive these behaviors really were, both to myself, to Sean, and to the kids. In order not to condemn myself indefinitely, I needed a model to help me process and carry on with this work. The WISE model offers a simple, straightforward construct to guide productive and positive dialogue from the perspective of what setbacks in dialogue represent. The model includes 1. Willingness to sit with the other. 2. Imagining possibilities. 3. Self-reflection. And 4. Engaging with empathy. These 4 simple, accessible steps helped me to keep connected to my personal relationship with dignity and also to feel and recognize, with respect, the dignity of others. Once I had this better grounding, I began to explore other aspects where I was allowing the fear of my shadow and the desires of my heart to create untruthful stories that were damaging my dignity and the dignity of others. I engaged in conversation with the kids about my behaviors, and many discoveries were made. These weren't easy conversations. Asking Sarah, for example, to explain the way she feels I see her, only to hear her reluctantly share she often feels her best isn't good enough for me, but is good enough for her father. My initial tendency to defend my messaging was tempered by the Buddhist practice of deep listening and the WISE model, and I was grateful. Despite my heart felt a bit broken, I knew if I'd responded with defense, the trust I was building with Sarah would be shattered. I leaned on the concept of essential dialogue and its contribution to the development of the WISE model, which calls forth the necessity to accept that challenges in dialogue are moments of opportunity to choose to continue the creative dance between the self and the other for the sake of peace and the maintenance of dignity, and I was able to abide. The outcome was worth it. When considering my work with dignity, dialogue, and peace building in our home, the WISE model was a powerful tool. Willingness and self-reflection require we come from a base of openness to look outside of our own beliefs, our own insecurities, our own fears of loss of face, in order to deeply listen and truly see the other person and preserve their dignity with respect. To bring willingness to a dialogue process requires we conquer the internal conflict that holds us back in connection, which is our instinctive response to threat, the impulse to act from a place of the internal other to protect ourselves. The openness that was born out of an awareness of my shadow self and the drivers of the stories I've created, bringing these out of the darkness to meet the light became joyful work. It reminded me of working in the garden. At first, I want to stay clean and just yank a few weeds, but an hour later, I generally find I've given myself over to the work, joyfully turning and tending the earth, unhinged from any concerns of dirty feet, fingernails, or the spiders scurrying around me. In all seriousness, the study of dignity and peace and the results at the conclusion of just a month of focused attention was profound. I found that my relationships changed with the benefit of honesty and deep listening. I found it easier to relinquish control after I was able to name my fears through my shadow work. In doing so, there was greater ease in letting everyone be exactly who and how they are, and with reinforcing the message of truth that I love them unconditionally no matter any of it. Perhaps the greatest benefit has been the internal work to discover my own truths and transform to an improved version of myself as a result. This is a benefit that will continue to support everyone I come in contact with going forward. Generally speaking, I've learned that the work of peace building is a most worthy endeavor, and I'm grateful for the catalyst to look deeply at these concepts. The timeliness with the state of our nation and our planet calls for leaders and peace builders as perhaps never before. It is my aspiration to begin with my inner world and progressively and positively affect the world around me with skillful means in building peace. Dialogue as a means and dignity as a focus of peaceful, sustained engagement feels aligned with the needs of today. I'll close with a quote that touched my heart and inspired me from the start of Oliver Urbain's 2018 peacebuilding practice essay, which says, quote, "Engaging in dialogue is a struggle to positively transform our own life as well as that of others. It is the act of breaking out of the shell of our lesser self, surmounting the wall of our callous ego, and creating and expanding positive connections with others. End quote. Wishing to continue on this path, I will share that I am hoping for lots of company on the journey. I believe we'll all be better for it and more able to address the pressing concerns of humanity from the wholeness of our true and dignified selves. All right, that's it for dignity and peace. I hope there's something valuable that you can take from this lens into your own personal experience. And I'm wishing you peace. Talk soon.